Sangala, Brian Sangala events, and a very warm welcome to Talanoa Moana, a new series, podcast, vlog, whatever you call it, highlighting amazing stories within our Pasifika diaspora. And to all our Samoans tuning in from around the world, Samoan Language Week 2025, we're currently celebrating here in New Zealand. But firstly, I would like to introduce the incredible individual we're going to be speaking with this evening. This is Tuilagi William Leolahi, Matai, Orator and Christ Follower from Vailoa, Faleata, Naiafu, Safune, and Safotulatai. Husband and father of 8, he serves with Health New Zealand, Te Whatuora, manages athletes, owns businesses, contributes to Samoan sports associations, and is currently running for the Manurewa local board. Tuilagi, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk on Moana Talanoa and share some stories, man. Sounds like it's going to be exciting. So very, very good to be here.
And I'm so blessed to my first up guest and here in my state-of-the-art studio with Matai. So thank you.
That's how we do it in the South.
Come on. Now, Samoan Language Week celebrations, of course, here in New Zealand at the moment. How have you been celebrating Samoan Language Week across either the family or the many different hats that you wear also?
Yeah, so we've done a few digital stuff around the Samoan Language Week. We've sent out some videos just encouraging people, certain words that we've translated in terms of all on our platforms, and send messages through churches. But even through work today, we had our panel just discussing how integral cultural competency was needed in terms of serving people in the health industry, and how they could really just strengthen our connections and strengthen our relationship with our communities out there who continue to not trust us sometimes.
Yeah.
But we are utilizing our languages in areas where we can build that trust and gain that trust back if we've lost it, especially in the health sector. So yeah, it's been very encouraging in that way.
Nice. Now I've known of you for a while, but as I've become more active in the interweb space and social media, I love watching your channel, which primarily is highlighting Samoan oratory in sports, which no doubt is a passion of yours.
Yes.
How did the channel come about? How long has it been running?
Yeah. So the channel, basically, we just started in the last 3 months. The Matai channel, yeah, it's not very old. It's quite very new, and it's in its infant stages. Before the channel came about, there was a need for me to learn my language.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we want to talk about that.
Of course.
Yeah. So I go back to my journey growing up, born here in New Zealand, Middlemore, being in South Auckland, went to school, started at Otahu College, and then finished up at St. Kinningan College, and then got into coaching, and then moved to Australia from 2006 all the way till 2020.
Wow.
So a long time we spent in Australia. But during that time in Australia,
Whereabouts in
Sydney.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I know. New South Wales.
Oh wait, do you support New Zealand? Oh wow.
We're one.
Okay, well, hey, we're representing two different sides.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, so 2006 we had an opportunity to take some players over, as I was coaching here, and a few of them had opportunities in league over in Australia. So we had majority of our boys that we took from here were in for Sydney Roosters, and at the time was Freddie Fitler was coaching, and a lot of these kids. We had 20 kids, and we took 15 over, and we lived in Sydney in one house, so we could shop these kids around to all these clubs. Yeah, it was crazy. We did that for 3 months during the preseason.
Like pastoral care?
Yeah, pastoral care, feeding them, transporting them, all of that stuff. And we did this out of our own, we financed it ourselves. So we were there, and all the clubs, these kids were like 16 years of age.
Wow.
And so we had that whole 3 months to expose them to different clubs. Obviously, Sydney was like the mecca of rugby league, all clubs there. But the main club was the Roosters.
Yeah.
And we all sort of got there. So then when we took these kids and they started playing well during the under-16s and under-18s and the Roosters, the coaches were like saying, hey, we've got a group of these kids. There's about 8 of them, and they come from this one club, from this one house, who was coached from this one guy, which was me. And so word got to Freddie, who was the coach, and the CEO at the time was Brian Canavan, man, and they were wanting to figure out how these Polynesian kids were transitioning into the club.
Yeah.
So then we got the conversations going. I had an interview with them, and then they asked me if I could be the Polynesian liaison officer for the Sydney Roosters at that time, and between 06 and 08. So it was funny. So having this understanding about who we were from South Auckland to Sydney was helpful. And then as I was doing the role, I started, because the Roosters don't have a development. They're a city team. So all their development is from outside.
Yeah.
So they get these kids flowing in, they get these islanders coming in. And what they were trying to figure out is how do we transition them where they feel comfortable?
Wow.
Because if they're comfortable, they can obviously become better players. So then when I used to go out and talk to the parents, some of them would speak to me in Samoan.
Wow.
And I didn't know how to respond.
Yeah.
Because, you grew up in a household where Samoan is spoken, only heard, but it's not responded wise, right? So it's like a passive listening bit. So I could understand everything, but then I respond in English. So the majority of us do that. And then it got to a period where from the Roosters, then the NRL Pacifica started building their identity, and then they wanted to have some people who were in the NRL system who were Pacific.
Right.
So then I got sort of introduced to that. And then again, I was dealing with these parents who were speaking Samoan, and then I was responding in English. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I feel like I'm a fake person right now because I'm not responding in Samoan.
Yeah.
And these parents are like trusting me that I'm the right person to guide their kids throughout our professional career. So then I got to a stage where I started to question it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to learn this language. I'm going to take it on because I know it's going to help me connect better with these parents, the trust I'm going to get from them, to know that if I can respond to them in that language, it proves to them that, I'm that Polynesian guy that can help liaise. So that then became my journey. Yeah. From that point on, I started asking my dad, asked my mom, like, okay, how do I want to learn this stuff?
Yeah.
And then my dad said, well, learn our whakapingas, our political districts, our political structures from our villages. And then I said, okay, what are our villages? He gave me the villages. My mom gave me her villages. And then I started going through the whole whakapinga book, just reading. And what I noticed in the whakapinga book was these names. Yeah. And these names were names that I was hearing while I was growing up, but I didn't know that they had a political status within a village. There was a whole structure that they lived by. And then that became that journey. Like, wow, this is exciting. Like, I love the fact that I'm learning these things. It's making sense to me. And then this comes from this village. But then when I started to learn my other side, I started to see similar names in this one and this one. And then I said to myself, why is there a connection? And then obviously you find out that villages are connected to certain villages, and then they make up districts. And then when they make up districts, they make up states, and then these states, they make up countries. And then that's how I broke down this whole system of your whakapinga, which is your political structure. And then I looked at names, were Matai names, obviously, and how they intertwined with each other. And then I started to learn that. And then I wanted to now learn their alanga opus, like analogies. Like, so certain alanga opus come from certain districts. And then I started learning those. And then all of a sudden, where I sort of got trapped was I started learning the deep knowledge of Samoan language and started the common language. Right. So then once I had that journey, about a year or so, just learning the deep stuff, the royal language, and then I started to learn the common language. And I found it was easier doing it that way than the other way. What? I know. It's strange because some people try to do the easy part, and they don't want to go deep because it's too hard. Whereas I went to the hard part, and then the easier part came when it was easy for me to conversate with, in the common way. Yeah. And that's how it basically came to be. So my journey then became that. And once my dad said, when they say I wanted to get my tattoos done. Yeah. So I said, Dad, I want to get my tattoos done. And he said, wow. So I said, okay, well, I have been learning. I feel like I've got to a stage where I understand the royal language a little bit now. Now I want to show people that I want to serve. Just for your son and Mickey. So then I got that. And then when I got that, I was like, okay, what's the next part that I can do? Obviously now it's serve. Yeah. So then you start serving, and then there's an opportunity now when after your level of service and it gets recognized within your family and in your villages, then they bestow you or they announce that you're in line for a Matai title.
Right.
And so that then became the transition. So when we got the Matai title, I knew when I received it that I wasn't just inheriting a Matai title. I was inheriting a responsibility now to serve.
Wow.
And that's where it sort of all began.
It's incredible because, you know, a lot of people that'll be watching this, yep. Because for a lot of us, including myself, oh man,
absolutely.
But yet to hear that you're New Zealand born,
yeah.
And so does it surprise many of our people,
Yep.
when they speak to you and then they find out, what?
Yeah.
How do they react?
Yeah, they're shocked.
Yeah.
Because it's not something they expect. They don't realize, people in the village in Samoa don't realize that the diaspora are thirsty for this stuff.
Wow.
They are hungry for this stuff. And people in the village take it for granted sometimes. Yeah, because it's the biggest thing, the biggest gap we have here is access to that stuff. Whereas they live it. Their whatsingo manga, their surroundings, that's all there. So that was the biggest thing that I realized. So when they get shocked and they say, no one, they're shocked, and the other part is they're proud. Like, man, we're so proud that people from our Samoas that are out of Samoa are actually learning this stuff, and it's great. And then here's the thing, man. This is crazy, because when you become a Makai, because you're out in the diaspora, you've got different people from different villages. When you're living in Samoa, you're only surrounded by the people in your village.
Wow. So
the only political structures and the only conversations you have, only langa upus you have, is within that village.
Right.
When you're out here, you have to learn whalupengas of everybody.
Wow.
All over Samoa.
Yeah.
Every single district, right? In Samoa, there's 9 political main districts.
Right.
There's 3 in Upolu,
right.
And then there's 6 in Salafai.
Itu Malo. Okay, yeah.
So you have to know political structures of all 3. Tuumua is what they call Tuumua. All 3 of them. And the head Makai's there, they got Lufi, you got Tusama, which is Fatamululu, and you got Little Moenga. And then you now look onto Salafai, they got 62 Malos who have head titles.
Yeah.
And you, as an orator now outside of Samoa,
have
to know all their business, to greet them, to introduce yourself, to whaalangi them, whaerea them. Eh?
Yeah.
So when you know all of that and you practice that and you're surrounded by that out here, when you go back to the villages, you look like you're actually smarter than them, because you know all of Samoa, whereas they know only villages. Only village life. So that's the shock that they get.
Yeah.
And that's what it is for us.
On your learning journey, when you mentioned the term like imposter syndrome, did you ever go through that? And if you did, how do you overcome that?
Yeah. Oh man, it's massive. Because remember, we grew up in an era where fob was embarrassing to be a fob.
Yeah.
And so, but we grew up with people who already spoke Samoan, right? And when we tried to speak Samoan, it was broken. But then when they tried to speak English, it was broken too. And we would laugh, and they would laugh at us. And then, but we took that as a excuse not to learn it, right? And that's where the imposter syndrome kicks in. I mean, there's levels of it. There's imposter syndrome of when you try to speak it, and then there's an imposter syndrome when you get a Matai title.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. It's like, well, do I really deserve this thing? What's it about? There's not enough information around it. But you see now on social media, there's a massive hunger for it. You see Salafai coming in every month now. And what I mean by that is Matai bestowing titles for these certain villages. So
for you, how did you overcome that, the sort of imposter syndrome, whether at the sort of introductory level or at the highest Matai level?
For me, what worked was preparation, like really study your craft, really learn it, really read it. The Samoan Bible is there, we read it all the time, but we never recite it. But if we were starting to recite the Samoan Bible, it's actually same as reciting the way we speak in Samoa. It's the same thing. And do it and make mistakes. Know that when you speak it, you're going to make mistakes. Nobody is perfect in terms of our language. Even the Matais, the top Matais, when I listen to them, they're making mistakes all the time. The alanga upu sometimes they're using is wrong.
Yeah.
They're using alanga upu for a funeral, but they're at a wedding. or they're, you know, or they, you know, and this is what, or they're saying a political structure, they've missed a really important name. Now in Samoa, that is forbidden. You don't do that. But where's over here, because not everybody knows it, everybody's just sort of going on with the flow.
So the ma factor, which stops many of us trying to learn more, where, okay, I've learned maybe a simple whawhiroainga, and I go to share it at a public gathering and then, you know, I get a reaction, or, you know, at family mafokanga or stuff like that. It's like, how do you overcome that if you've sort of been beaten down proverbially by your own people?
Oh, it's just got to get past it.
Yeah.
You got to understand that it's not about you.
Yeah.
The Matai is the name of your family.
Right.
And that's who you represent. That's them.
Wow.
You've taken that on board to represent them.
Yeah. And
that's why when you, if something like Ma is going to stop you, then you shouldn't be a Matai then.
Wow.
You know, because it's not about being embarrassed. It's about being proud. It's about learning your stuff and then saying it in a way that will make your family proud.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm finding now is that a lot of our corporate scene have a lot of Samoans in there or Polynesians in there. They have Matai titles now. Right. And this is like in the health sector,
even Balanese.
In the ministry sector, even Balanese. And what I'm seeing is that they're struggling now to have a lot of all their inheriting cultural competency.
Right.
They don't, like you said before, it's a bit embarrassing when you can't do a whairoainga in our own language, and you're a CEO of a company, or you're a managing director, and you can't really communicate that way. But the people you're representing are those very people at those tables. So if you can't speak the language of the people you're representing, then what are you speaking about at those tables that make decisions, put policies together for the people that you're trying to serve? Yeah. And that's where the lack of now trust comes into play. Wow. You're becoming a voice of the people you don't communicate with, and you're creating policies and procedures for initiatives for people who are not going to accept it. Wow. And that's where a lot of that broken things come down. But the reason why I started bringing this Matai channel, right? We started it 3 months ago, and the first day that I launched it, 800 people joined. Wow. Yeah, 800 people. And 3 months in, we got 2,200. Wow. And it was crazy. It was like, what I realized is that there's a massive gap here. And it's not just people who work in corporate, it's people who've got titles who now go on to live abroad and they don't know what to do. Wow. It's like, now I'm on Matai, well, what's next? Yeah. Right? And so I seen that and I thought, okay, well, maybe I can help with that because I was like that before. Wow. But I didn't go get my title. I went through like a different process. And so this thing happened to come about. And so I know that our ancestors did not carry our culture during the time of social media. But I believe that our culture can be carried through social media today. You know, and that's where we're at. And that's why this channel is available and that's why it's constantly growing. Yeah. And the good thing about it is there's no return. Like in order for me to speak, I'll post a video. Sure. And then I'll post some comment, but they can't respond. They'll have to respond to me in message in private. Nice. So you turn comments off? Yeah. Well, it's part of the channel. Right. So the channel's only one way. Wow. Yeah. So I'll put introductions on there. Yeah. I'll put like whairoaingas on there. And my main thing was because I'm working with a lot of, and I'm friends with, you know, a couple of sporting athletes or stars who want to introduce themselves a bit more formally. Sure. Especially in interviews and things like that. Yes, of course. So, you know, we put these examples together for them as well. And even for Matais that want to introduce themselves into a family funeral, for church, things for Whikai, on behalf of their whaiwhiao or on behalf of their organization, things like that. So simple to do, but now they have access to it. Yeah. You know? The digital village is alive and well. Oh my gosh. And all it needs is some Samoan wisdom. Yeah. And here we go. Here's the question then, Tuilagi. And with the increase in following, in the raising of your profile in the area of Samoa Anganuu, how do you then deal with the responsibility when many people will be looking to you as the sole depository, the sole authority on mea Samoa Anganuu? How do you deal with that? Yeah, it's a new thing for me. Yeah. I'm sort of gauging my way on how to deal with these things. Yeah. Obviously now because of so much demand be put in place. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, one-on-one it's great. I can teach like that.
Sure.
And then, but to now, accustomed for 2,000,
Yeah.
200 people.
Wow.
That becomes, the issue for me at the moment. So it's all learning.
Yeah.
Eventually we'll get still much needed. And I don't have to be the only one, right? There can be many others.
Yeah.
And they just have to find this way now that social media is the way to teach.
Awesome.
And that's probably it at the moment.
For those of us, I might say more mako kakoi, or ele ako koa. But we ko angape, we're still trying to learn. And that, what was the biggest help for you in your learning journey, which you could pass on as encouragement for those that are still learning at whatever level in terms of their ngana and amanua?
So I think for us, if you're still learning it, stay close to your parents.
Wow.
Really stay close to your parents. If you're in the church, man, go to our English service, go to a Samoan service. Really embrace yourself and really surround yourself with it. But don't go in as just a listener now. Go in as a contributor.
Wow.
Like, take something that you've heard and you want to question, or you want to elaborate on, or you want more information, you write it down. And then once you understand what that word is, then use it. And use it as a way where I say, look, like, you can say the Samoan as the word, but you finish it in English.
Right.
And then it slowly, as one word, you finish it in English.
Give an example from the one.
So like this word I had today, discipline. Consistency. Means tu mau.
Right.
So tu mau. So for me, in order for me to achieve something successful, I have to tu mau in what I do.
Nice.
So if you obviously elaborate more, in order for me to be successful in this thing, it's a tauana o tu mau.
Nice.
So you're now adding a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you just continue like that.
Yeah.
That's the full scale of what I just explained. And that's how you work with it. And then you find opportunities during the day where you utilize that. Our team, we have to be consistent.
Awesome.
So that we can be successful.
Awesome.
It's very simple, but it's effective when you can utilize it that way.
Yeah.
And you start to build it and build it and build it. So yeah, hang on to that. Stay close to your parents, stay close to your church, find those little words that you want to use, and then pass it on. Because I tell you what, if you're a parent, your kids are looking up.
Yeah.
Your kids are looking up. So if the language was sort of missing during your generation in terms of how you were learning it, then this is an opportunity for you to learn it and pass it, right?
Awesome.
Because the best thing that we can give our children as legacy is their identity, who they are, where they're from, and who they serve.
Awesome.
It's really important.
Man, it's incredible. One more on this particular area before we move on, Tuilagi. A lot of people say subjective. Like your interpretation of a langaupu or saying something in whawhairoa might be different depending on your village, your district, etc. How do you sort of manage that space, or do you have those types of discussions with other Matai, or even online if somebody might DM you and go, hey, this is the way I understood it. How do you broach that?
Yeah, absolutely. Samoa is like that. Tauwhi. What that means is everybody has different interpretations. But whenever you use an analogy on a langa upu, you have to go to the core of where it came from.
Nice.
So you have to identify that. And whatever that scenario, that context was, you don't have to relate it to the context that you're currently in.
Nice.
So
awesome.
That's the way you interpret it. So you find out where it's from. So certain Malanga upus comes from legends in certain parts of Samoa.
Right.
You identify that part. You go to that, or you ask a makai from that village, hey, what is your interpretation of this? Because what I heard is this. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then they usually correct you, or they'll usually say a slight, there's something, just a small thing. And that's it. And then you know now that you're going to be using it. And what I usually do, whenever I take a CE or I do something, I always ask where they're from, like where this family's from, and then I get their political structure, and then I get their analogies, their langaupus from that place, because it helps me relate to them, because now I'm speaking their language, even though it's in Samoan. But when you speak their langaupus, they embrace you more because you've taken time to consider them to think about them, and now you're honoring them because of the way you whaea in terms of your sea. It's just it's a beautiful thing to know when you understand it, and that's the sad part about our growing up, is that this part was always happening, but we didn't know what was going on. They're like, man, they're looking like they're arguing, they look like and then they're laughing, and then all of a sudden this guy's gone, and what happened? It's like, but as you grow up and as you take time to invest to want to learn this stuff, and you really want to embrace it, it's actually a beautiful thing. It's like poetry in our language. And that's the sense of it.
Do you have one more? Do you have a highlight as such, if from the channel over the last few months, or since you started on this journey in the early 2000s, where it's like, oh wow, that was sort of like the Mount Everest for me in terms of my oratory journey?
Man, I tell you what, Matai is not about power; it's about presence. And that's been one of the biggest highlights for me as a Matai, is being present. You know, sometimes we as Matais, we think that we have to provide everything, especially with some kupes, with families and things like that. That's always a part. Whalaulavi has become the whole talking point about a lot of stuff. And you always think that because you're the Matai, you need to do more. You need to give more. You need to, no, it's about being there. It's about being present. And so one of the best, why I bring that story, because there was a lady from America. Now, there's 2,200 people all over the world. They're in Alaska, they're in northern parts of America, Hawaii, like UK, Japan, this guy from Japan. And one of the highlights that I got from this lady was she just didn't know how to explain it. She couldn't give much to these kupes. And I explained to her that you as a Matai, your presence is more than anything. It's more valuable than you not being there and not giving enough. And so I explained to her that we have a saying called Mativa le whasangai, or whasangai I mativa, means that we are there out of our poverty. We are there out of what we lack of. We turn up because we don't have enough. That's why we are there. And that's a concept that we live by in Samoa. For some reason, it's been skewed as we've come out of Samoa. Because you remember, in Samoa, you have, mai povile ko loa, povile ko I, ia mainga I kalunga, komari ia kongangali. And then that's what we take. Whereas here now, that's transitioned into money, like real money, and that's what we sometimes lack. And so I see to that's why we have that saying, "Mativa whasangai," is because that's the concept. You're coming because of you have lack. You're not coming because you got more. You're not coming because you have enough. You're showing your love because this is all you got, and that's good enough. Beautiful. And she went away and explained that to her family. She came back and she was like, "Thank you so much for that. That was so amazing to explain that to my family." And I said, yeah, because a strong part of our culture is humility. Those are strong points I respect in our humility. Where we get it wrong sometimes is we try to be prideful. We try to show that we got all these things. Come on. But then really, we're struggling hard. So that's been a key aspect. It's just teaching that Matai is not about power, it's about presence. And that's the most important part. And so hopefully that helps, people out there, and those young Makais that are in that position where they feel like they're obligated to always give. So it's not about that at all. It's about being present. And that's the main thing.
Now, Tuilagi, man, so many hats. So I want you to touch briefly on these. Health New Zealand Te Whatu Ora, managing athletes, that's so interesting. Business owner, and it's not business as in singular, but multiple businesses, as well as sports associations. And we're going to touch on running for the money. Man, that is a plethora of different hats. Give us a bit of how do you manage all those?
I came back from Australia with this mindset. In Australia, in Sydney, especially in Sydney, you're living a fast-paced life. And over there, you don't have much support around being Pacific. So a lot of our Pacific there, we stick together and we do things that we showcase it to basically the world, because it's so diversified in Sydney. You got your Arabs, you got your Chinese, your Asians, you got your Aussies, you got your Lebs, and you got your Wogs and things like that. And these are all different parts of the world that are all compressed in this one place. So anytime something that we do in terms of Pacific, we get together and we showcase. We are all sort of like aiming to be the best at this. We are all the fastest talkers. We are all driving fast. We're all selling everything fast. Everything is about a fast mindset, but it's a progressive one. And so I had that mindset for 19 years being in Australia. So when I came back here, it felt like I was like, wow, it's so relaxed. Everyone's so passive. It's in Sydney, it's hard out. Everyone's gunning for each other. Everyone's aggressive. And over here, like, oh, what's going on here? Like, and then I was like, okay, I can't live like this. I gotta keep this mindset going. I gotta keep busy. I gotta keep doing things. Like, I have 8 kids. I call them the 8 wonders of the world.
Wow.
Yeah. And on top of that, obviously, married. And then all these things started putting in place. So with Health New Zealand, I took on that role because a role came that I was really interested in, which was how do we connect it's the Matai stuff was the big thing.
Wow.
That's how I was connecting with our communities, and then align them with our initiatives, our health priorities. We're low in many forms of, behind obesity, behind diabetes, mental health. It's a big thing now for our young people. Alcohol harm. To change, and that's what part of my role was with New Zealand. With the agency, it's called Tuilagi Pacifica. Lawyers that we deal with, cultural competency officers that we deal with, and that came.
Is it sports agency? And managing athletes?
Yeah.
How many on your books?
Yeah, so we got a couple. We got 2 with Moana Pacifica at the moment.
Sure.
And we've got a whole catchment of young people going towards France, into Italy.
Wow.
Young people, and they have opportunity, residency. Overseas to embrace our young.
Wow.
Tuilagi Pacifica obviously means royalty. Tui means king, queen, royals of the Pacific.
Yeah.
And that's how we want to. That's how we want to start. And we want clubs to embrace them that way as well.
Man.
So imagine a French club doing another ceremony to welcome in the player.
Yeah.
From down here.
Wow.
It's an amazing introduction, and now it's a start of a key relationship, and that's the kind of stuff, like, my father might be a Matai. There's got to be a Matai from their club,
right?
Where they do it in English or in Samoan, doesn't matter.
Right.
The communication has to work. It has to, it has to be done. Yeah, so stuff like that.
Man.
So that is Tuilagi Pacifica. That is Health New Zealand. Local board.
Why are you running? Why? You've got all this happening, all this plate spinning. Spinning on the plates.
I tell you what, this last 2 weeks, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I actually contemplated whether I should do it or not.
Yeah.
Because I had some.
Right.
But I live in Manudiwa. For me, this is what you're going to get.
Okay.
I'll be your voice. I will speak whatever you need, and I will say it. That's it.
Yeah.
And so this last 2 weeks, oh man, am I really in there? Am I all in? Just 2 nights ago, I said, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All or nothing, eh?
Yeah, let's get in and let's be that voice for our people. Let's continue to be a presence amongst our communities. Like there's a lot of stuff we do in our communities that get unnoticed. There's a lot of stuff that are, like, even in the rugby scene, a lot of our people have contributed so much to this game. Yeah, we get recognition.
Yeah.
We get no flowers on top of that.
Mm.
And when it's time to make decisions, we're not even at that table.
Yeah.
And so, the thing with Manarewa, so many great things that our Pacific people do in Manarewa, but it's recognized. The only thing that does is our crime rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Are you seeing more of it?
yes,
In that space?
absolutely. It has to.
Yeah.
Right? We're at 10% of New Zealand's population at the moment. We're the before, we're low on all these health numbers. We're low on employment. From a social development point of view, we're very, it's not looking very good. Strategy.
Yeah.
Who he chairs that with a real strong Pacific leaders. Eventually, we're going to see more of it. The coaching wise, we've got Talanoa, we've got yeah, and you got Filotia,
Yep.
you've got Pele,
Nice.
and we need to encourage it. It's very refereeing.
Yes.
We need more
Talanoa.
That's will come.
Nice. To add to that as well, Tuilagi was annually to the New Zealand local economy. So there you go. Hey, very interested to hear. Back to New Zealand. What are some of the biggest differences you notice between Samoans, Pacifica in Australia versus here in New Zealand?
Yeah, there's some big differences there. There's some big differences, man. Like, well, I tell you what, I don't like New Zealand drivers. I hate the words here. Everybody just takes their time, like all the time the world to go somewhere, and you wonder why they're always late.
Yeah.
It's like, because they're just taking their time.
So you say they don't have island time on Australia? No?
That's how they're changing in Australia.
Yeah.
They don't have island time in Australia. They have on time where you're late.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, they're go-getters over there in Australia. They're go-getters. They're big thinkers. I mean, I'm not saying that we're not big thinkers here, but there's a bit that they deal with. You know? It's literally got the people that came here and thought New Zealand wasn't the place, and then moved them straight into it.
Right.
Straight into a system and how houses.
Yeah.
Getting into rings of the estate, they're owning properties, they're owning businesses. Yes,
pride.
So,
But no.
Oh, no. None of